It all started the day I bought that stupid old radio. You'll probably laugh, but I swear, this is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. It was the summer of 2023. I was in London, crashing at my friend Mark Taylor's flat for a few days. Mark's one of those vintage junk collectors who will buy anything if it looks old and mysterious. One lazy Sunday, we went to a flea market near Camden. We had coffee, cracked jokes, and wandered through the stalls. That's where I saw it. A dusty old radio, 1960s style, big knobs, real wood casing, looked like something out of a Hitchcock film. The guy selling it smiled weirdly and said, "Haunted, mate." Proper haunted, that one. Mark snorted. "Haunted? What, does it play ghost songs?" We both laughed. I bought it, and that was the moment everything changed. That night, we were chilling at Mark's, and I decided to plug the thing in. It worked perfectly. The sound was too clear, no static, no lag. And then it just turned on by itself. A woman's voice started singing, soft and eerie. "Good night, sweet darling. See you in the dreams." We assumed it was some old-timey radio station. Mark laughed. Probably some lonely ghost DJ. We both moved on. But the next morning, Mark looked pale. He said, "That woman, she was in my dream. She was standing next to the bed, humming that same song." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. We tried to ignore it. But every night after that, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the radio turned on by itself. And each time, the woman's voice got louder, more desperate, more real. One night, instead of singing, she was crying. It felt like she was sitting in the room with us. Mark began losing sleep. "I hear her humming even when the radio's off," he told me. I started feeling cold spots around the flat. Lights flickered. Once, I swear to God, I saw a shadow cross the hallway, but we were both sitting in the lounge. Then came the night that changed everything. It was around 3 a.m. I was sleeping in the guest room. Mark banged on my door, panic all over his face. "She spoke to me," he said. "She said, 'You're next.'" I tried to laugh it off, but he wasn't kidding. His hands were shaking. He said the woman sat at the foot of his bed, looked him dead in the eyes and whispered, "I have his voice now, but I need his soul next." He meant me. We went back to that flea market the next day, found the same seller. Mark demanded to know where the radio came from. The guy got real serious. It belonged to a man named Arthur Hamilton. He was a composer. His wife, Emma, died tragically in 1971. He said her last recording was on that radio. Told me to get rid of it. Said it sang by itself. A chill ran through me. We Googled it, found old newspaper clippings. Emma Hamilton had been found dead in her apartment, near Hamilton Lane, London. The coroner had no explanation, no wounds, no drugs, just a peaceful face and a playing radio beside her. Her final words, recorded in police files, were, "I'll come back through the music." We tracked down the address. The apartment had been abandoned for years, but it was still there. Same layout as in the files. We brought the radio with us. As soon as we entered, the air turned icy. We plugged in the radio. It switched on instantly. But this time, no song, just screaming. The windows shook. The lights flickered violently. Mark clutched his ears, screamed back, "We're sorry, we didn't know." Then the voice said, louder than I've ever heard, "You brought him back. Now one of you stays." Smoke poured from the radio. Mark collapsed. I pulled him out somehow, kicked open the door, and dragged him down the stairs. I looked back once, and I swear I saw a figure standing by the window. A woman, smiling. Now, Mark's in a psychiatric facility. He doesn't respond to anyone except when he hears humming. Every night, he curls into a ball and whispers, "She's still singing. She won't let me go." I burned the radio, but sometimes I still smell smoke. And at 2:47 a.m., I hear it faintly. Good night, sweet darling. The truth. Some objects don't just carry memories, they carry souls. And some songs are not meant to be heard. They are meant to summon. If you ever hear music coming from something that shouldn't be playing, run and don't look back. This happened in the year 1954, my child. My grandson asked me last night, "Grandpa, can you tell me that childhood story again? The one about the house, the weird one." I chuckled. "Which one? The one where Peter lost his shoe in the river, or the one where we tried to bribe a ghost with chocolate?" He laughed. "No, the scary one. The one with that man, Chuck Wilhelm." At that, I paused. It's been decades since I heard that name. But if you insist, then yes. Sit close. This isn't a bedtime story. This is a warning. Back when I was 11, it was 1954. I was a scrawny little boy named Henry, living in a forgotten village in southern England called Westbridge. A place where the fog never fully left the ground and the crows always cawed louder than they should have. There was no internet, no phones, just the crackling sound of the radio and the wild imagination of children. We were 6 inseparable friends. Me, Henry, Rosie, the wild girl with red hair, Peter, always hungry, Greg, a quiet bookworm, Eddie, the suspicious one, and the oldest of us all, George, whom we called Commander. We played every day after school, built forts out of trash, and stole apples from old Lady Martha's backyard tree. Life was simple, until we found the book. It was raining that day. The school library leaked from every corner, so we took shelter inside. Rosie, being nosy as ever, pulled a strange leather-bound book from the very back of the shelf. Its title was nearly erased by dust, but Greg wiped it clean. The Shadows of Mirror Hollow by Chuck Wilhelm. I laughed. Chuck Wilhelm? Sounds like a guy who sells used boots. Peter read the first line out loud. "Do not open unless you wish to wake the shadow." "Should we open it?" "No," George snapped. "Sounds like rubbish." But Rosie had already flipped the page. Too late. And with that, something in the air changed. The wind inside the library shifted, even though the windows were closed. Next day, Rosie told us a story her grandmother once whispered to her. "There used to be an old mansion beyond the graveyard, built by Chuck Wilhelm himself." Eddie raised an eyebrow. "Isn't he the one who disappeared in 1912 along with his whole family?" Greg nodded. "They say the police never found their bodies. The house was abandoned. Still is." We decided, because we were kids, and kids are stupid, we'd go there. At night. It was nearly midnight when we reached the mansion. It looked like it had been pulled out of time. Frozen, covered in vines, windows shattered, but still reflecting the moon. The gate opened on its own. I swear it did. Inside, everything was dusty, dead, and yet breathing. You could hear the creaks even when no one moved. On the wall was a photograph, aged and blackened. Underneath was written, "Chuck Wilhelm and Family, 1911. Their faces smiled, but their eyes were blank. Peter turned to the corner, his voice trembling. "Did someone just whisper, 'Hello?'" George barked, "It's just wind." "Keep moving." On the top floor was a giant mirror, framed in rusted silver. It stood taller than any of us. I walked in front of it, casually, and nearly screamed. In the reflection, we were all there, but our faces were pale, smeared with blood. Our eyes were hollow sockets. Rosie gasped, "There's someone behind me!" She spun. No one was there. But in the mirror, a man stood behind her, tall and still, with claws for fingers. Then the door slammed shut behind us. The light flickered, and the mirror started glowing. Greg whispered. The book said, "Wake the shadow, and it will never sleep again." Eddie grabbed his arm. "We woke it, didn't we?" "Yes," Greg whispered. We ran down the stairs, but the front door was gone. Not locked. Gone. The wall where it once stood was now bricks, old and cold, like it had never existed. Then we heard it, Rosie's scream, high, sharp, and suddenly cut off. We rushed into the hall. She was gone. Only her ribbon lay on the floor, soaked in something red. "Where is she?" Peter whispered. Greg looked into the mirror, and Rosie was trapped inside it, her palms against the glass, her mouth moving. But there was no sound. Only her eyes moved, begging. Suddenly, the room dropped in temperature. Our breaths became clouds. In the corner, something moved. He stepped out of the darkness, a man, or what was left of him. Long decaying coat, fingernails like knives, and eyes, 2 burning holes. Chuck Wilhelm. He smiled. "You read my words. You opened the seal. Now I live in you." We ran, screamed, crashed through halls that seemed to never end. We found a basement door, locked. George kicked it open. Inside were old newspaper clippings nailed to the walls. "Family disappears without trace. Chuck Wilhelm declared dead. Locals say his mirror steals souls." Then we saw it. A message scratched into the stone. "He hasn't truly woken yet. If you wake him, your truth becomes his lie." And we had woken him. The house swallowed Peter next. One moment he was behind me. The next, his shoes were there. And that's it. Eddie tried to fight back. He picked up a cross from the wall. Chuck laughed. He laughed. And Eddie burst into flames. Greg and I found a way out through a hidden hatch behind the fireplace. We crawled through mud, bones, and rats. When we emerged, it was already dawn. 3 days later, they found George's body behind the village graveyard. His chest had been carved open. On his chest, words were burned into the skin. I saw the truth in the mirror. Now, 70 years later, I live alone. But I still hear Rosie's laugh when it rains. The mirror? I kept it, buried deep in my basement. It hasn't glowed in decades until last Tuesday. Dear listeners, a warning to you. This story isn't to scare you, child. It's to protect you. If you ever come across a book with no title, or a mirror that shows you things that aren't there, leave it, or else Chuck Wilhelm will wake again. Adam, these Netflix horror movies are jokes. Real fear is when something happens to you, something no logic or science can explain. That was Liam, and as usual, we all burst out laughing. It was just the 4 of us that weekend. Me, Rick, Liam, Adam, and Jessica. We were spending a hot summer break at Adam's countryside farmhouse. Nothing wild, just cold beer, grilled meat, and a whole night of silly jokes and spooky stories. Jessica, my girlfriend, was unusually quiet that night. She smiled, laughed here and there, but her eyes were distant, like she was hiding something. I chalked it up to the heat, or maybe PMS. Stupid me. Beside the farmhouse was an old barn. The locals called it the Black Barn. The rumor? A girl had hanged herself there in the 70s after being betrayed by her lover. Liam, ever the clown, said, "Let's go play Ouija in the barn. Maybe the ghost wants to chill too." We laughed again, all except Jessica, whose face suddenly looked pale. Later that night, beers in hand, we entered the barn. Dust everywhere, broken windows, old ropes. A lonely swing creaked in the corner like it hadn't been touched in decades. Liam pulled out a wooden box, his special find from an antique shop. Inside, a classic Ouija board. As soon as we placed our fingers on the planchette, the temperature dropped, literally. My breath fogged up. The wind stopped. The silence was unnatural. Then the planchette moved. WELCOME. Jessica stood up suddenly. "I'm out," she said shakily. We joked, thought she was playing scared, but her hands were trembling. Back in the living room, we kept drinking, but something was off. Every time I looked at Jessica, she wasn't looking at me. She was staring behind me, like someone was there. That night, when everyone was asleep, Jessica came to me. Her eyes were glassy, but her smile was heartbreakingly soft. "Rick," she whispered, "if I'm gone tomorrow, tell my mom I forgave her." "What?" "Jess, what are you talking about?" "It's time. He's come back. I was always his." She kissed my forehead. Gentle. Final. Then she left the room. I never saw her again. We searched all morning. Every room, every field, every inch of the barn. She was gone. Not a trace, except one thing inside the barn, scratched into the old wood, were the words, "You made a promise. You broke it. Now I'm here." Weeks later, I met an old man in town. I told him what happened. He paled and muttered, "She's back." Then he told me the real story. In 1970, a girl named Emily lived in the house. She was in love with a man named Leo, but Leo got tired of her and left. Before dying, Emily made Leo swear he'd never love anyone else. Ever. She said, "If you ever love another, I'll come back. And I'll take her." Then she hung herself in the barn. I showed the old man a photo of Jessica. His face went white. This is Emily, but that can't be. She died over 30 years ago. Even now, I sometimes see Jessica in the mirror. Not clearly, just for a second. A faint smile, a shadow, a whisper I can't hear. Was she ever really Jessica, or was she just a vessel? The truth? Some promises don't die, some lovers don't rest, and some stories never end.